Hello viewers, 4DIYers here with another video for everyone. In this video here I'll be showing you how to replace the rear pads and rotors on a second generation Honda Pilot. This is a 2011 all-wheel drive model, but a similar procedure may apply to other Honda models as well. In order to save some video time, the parking brake replacement will be saved for another video. I will have two different angles of the footage for the replacement here. First, start by elevating the rear of the vehicle, then remove the wheel. I have also placed a jack stand under the vehicle as a safety. Loosen the cap on the master cylinder reservoir so we have a place for any pressure to escape when compressing the pistons. Using large interlocking pliers, compress the piston on the caliper. This will make the removal much easier. Then, using a 12mm socket with a ratchet, remove the caliper bolts. As you can see in the background, I'm using my 3.5 ton jack from OEM Tools, model number 24837. It has a minimum height of 3 3/4 inches and a maximum height of 20.5 inches. This makes a great addition to anyone's shop. A link to this will be included in the video description to Mobile Distributor Supply. Finally, lift out the caliper and place it somewhere safe. A bungee cord can be used to hold it safely. Do not put pressure on the flex line as this can cause damage. Using a 17mm socket and ratchet, remove the caliper carrier bolts. Remove the carrier and then place it off to the side. Don't lose those spacers for the carrier. For the rotor, this is held on with 2 Phillips screws. I would highly recommend using the impact driver to break these free, as they are known to seize. The impact driver provides a forward force when striking with a hammer, along with a twisting motion. This is especially important as Phillips screws are extremely easy to strip. In this case, I also needed heat, so a propane torch was used to help break it free. Heat the fastener for a minute and then try again with the impact driver. Eventually those screws will break free and then you can remove them. Using a hammer, hit the rotor in between the wheel studs. This will eventually break any rust free, releasing the rotor. Finally, remove that rotor. As mentioned earlier, I will be saving the parking brake replacement for another video if someone is wanting that replacement information. If not, then continue on with this video. Install the new rotor. This is a coated rotor, so there's no packaging oil that needs to be cleaned off on the braking surface. If you don't have coated rotors, then use brake cleaner to remove that packaging oil. Also use a wire brush if needed to clean up the hub face so there's no runout on the rotor. Install the rotor retaining screws. Now for the carrier, remove the old pads. You can try to pry them out with a screwdriver or use a hammer. Remove the anti-rattle clips. Remove the slide pins. These will need to be cleaned up and have new grease applied. Remove the rubber boots for the slide pins. They sit into a groove in the caliper carrier. Using a wire brush, clean up those spots where the anti-rattle clips are located. If the pads bind, then there is most likely too much buildup of debris or rust here. I applied some brake cleaner to the slide pin holes and I'll let them soak for a minute. The slide pins are cleaned with brake wipes. Remove any old dust and inspect for damage or excessive rust. If they are in rough shape, then replace. Now wash out those slide pin holes with brake cleaner to remove any old grease and debris. I purchased new slide pin boots. Use a small standard screwdriver to install them into the slot. Make sure they are fully seated. Install the caliper carrier with bolts. I applied some medium grade thread locker to these after cleaning up the threads with a wire brush. Don't forget to install those caliper carrier spacers. There should be one at the bottom and at the top. The torque specifications for the 17mm bolts is 65 foot-pounds or 88 Newton meters. Install those anti-rattle clips. Now install the brake pads. I applied a small amount of brake grease to the ears of the pads. Don't forget to install the wear indicator on the one brake pad. These also have additional anti-rattle clips on the pads that are a spring wire. Install these as well. There will be two. Apply new grease to the slide pins and install. Make sure there is enough grease where they are well lubricated, but not too much where it causes suction where you're unable to retract them. Install the pins and clean away any grease residue on the outside of the boots. Make sure that piston is fully pushed back in the caliper and then install. Again, those bolts were cleaned up using a wire brush. Medium grade thread locker was applied to the threads and then they are installed. The torque specifications for the 12mm caliper bolts is 27 foot-pounds or 37 Newton meters. Clean the hub face and the wheel and then reinstall. The torque specifications for the lug nuts is 94 foot-pounds or 127 Newton meters. Moving on to the other side for additional angles. Jack up this side of the vehicle and place a jack stand under the vehicle as a safety. Remove the lug nuts and wheel. If your wheel is stuck, then thread on one of the lug nuts to keep the wheel from falling off. I went under the vehicle and used a dead blow hammer, hitting the tire to help break it free. Use large interlocking pliers to compress the piston in the caliper. Using a ratchet with a 12mm socket, remove the two bolts holding on the caliper. Pull the caliper off and place it somewhere safe. As mentioned earlier, do not hang the caliper by the flex line. Using a 17mm socket with a ratchet, remove the two bolts holding on the caliper carrier. Remove the carrier and then place it off to the side. Don't lose those spacers for the carrier. Using an impact driver with a Phillips tip, remove the two rotor hold-down screws. Once the screws have been removed, and if the rotor is still stuck in place, use a hammer to hit in between those wheel studs. Lug nuts or a rubber hose can be installed over the studs if you're worried about hitting them. Finally, remove that rotor. Now it's cleaning up the carrier. Remove those slide pins along with the boots. If you're having uneven brake pad wear, sticking or seized slide pins can possibly cause this. Remove the old pads, and then finally those anti-rattle clips. Use a wire brush to clean up the area where the anti-rattle clips are located. Make sure these are clean. Then do a test fit after with the pads. They should fit freely and not bind. The wire brush can be used to clean up the areas where the slide pin boots clip into. Spray some brake cleaner in those slide pin holes and let it soak for a minute. Clean up the slide pins, removing any dirt or old grease. Finish up cleaning those slide pin holes in the carrier. Install the new rotor along with those retaining screws. Install the caliper carrier and make sure those spacers are in place. I applied medium grade thread locker to the bolts. The torque specifications for the 17mm caliper carrier is 65 foot-pounds or 88 Newton meters. Install those rubber boots for the slide pins. Apply a layer of grease to the slide pins and install. Clean away any grease residue on the outside of the boots if needed. Install the wear indicator on the one brake pad. Install the anti-rattle clips. Finally, install the brake pads. A light layer of grease was applied to the pad ears. Make sure they don't bind once they're installed. Install the anti-rattle clip wires on the pads. Make sure the piston is fully pushed back into the caliper and then install. More medium grade thread locker was applied to the bolts for the caliper. Tighten those caliper bolts. The torque specifications is 27 foot-pounds or 37 Newton meters. Clean the hub face of the wheel and then reinstall. The torque specifications for the lug nuts is 94 foot-pounds or 127 newton meters. Finally, you can lower the vehicle. Don't forget to tighten the master cylinder reservoir cap and pump the brake pedal before starting the vehicle to move the pistons for the calipers back into place. New videos released every week on my channel. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. It's a huge help to me, and leave a comment below if you found this tutorial helpful. If you're not a subscriber, be sure to also hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching.